Can we start? Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Maile Ohye, and I'm a support engineer with, bless you, Google Webmaster Central. Today, I'd like to talk to you about search-friendly development. And the reason why, working for a search engine company, this is so important for us that you all understand this and know where you can find resources, is because we know that you design websites, and you design websites for others as well. So the more accessible you can make that website so that we're able to crawl and index that data, then we can have a larger index, at which point we hopefully can return more targeted results to our users. So with that in mind, today's agenda consists of first talking about just some background on search, just to give you a little bit of a setting. Next, we'll talk about enhancing your website at every stage of the pipeline. So that's crawling, indexing, as well as search results. So for the crawl section, which is going to be our bulkiest area, we'll talk about accessibility and then how to do things with Flash and AJAX and images. When we get to indexing, I'll talk about promoting your quality content and reducing duplicates. And then when we get to search results, we'll talk about creating pretty results that your users will want to click on. And then the last thing we'll just cover quickly, search-friendly tips, just a quick checklist. So I kind of have a good idea of how the timing of this presentation goes. So you can ask questions anytime in the middle, and I'll just tell us when we need to move on. So feel free to go to any of the mics at any point. Oh, and if I don't see you, you can raise your hand and say, hey, I got a question. All right. So background, the goals of search. Google's mission is to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful. So with this in mind, just a quick overview of the pipeline. Googlebot goes out to home pages and websites, and it follows links and pages and links and pages, collects all that information, gets a lot of the text and the images, creates a glossary of that. So it has this word occurs at this location. And then when a user searches, we then look at all those words in our glossary, we apply ranking factors, and we return results. So today, what I'm going to talk about is not advertising. So there's two parts that come in a search result, right? We see the ads, that's the paid search, all in the yellow box, and the organic search results, and that's going to be in the green. And that's the stuff that I know stuff about. At Google, we call it a separation of church and state. So I can't help you at all with your AdWords. I don't even know anything about the product that well. But if we talk about organic search, that's where I can provide some value, hopefully. So with organic search, it used to just be 10 blue links. I think we all remember that. But now with universal search, and there's all these blended results, it's not just about having your website appear in search results. Now you have more opportunities to gain more exposure to your applications and your site. You have images you can optimize. You have videos. There's book search as well. There's blog search and news search. So consider that with your website, that you're not just limited to your actual web search, but if you create a great video and we show that in results, you can get traffic that way too. The last thing I want to mention about the background is that we have Webmaster guidelines. So I'll talk more about Webmaster in a bit. But Webmaster guidelines are just the rules we give webmasters. I don't think any of you probably need to know, you don't need to read this explicitly. Because if you just design a great website, this all comes into place. What are really violations of our guidelines is when people try to game the system. So that's maybe buying links just for the sole purpose of increasing your page rank. That's called paid links for page rank, and that's a violation. Or also hiding text or keyword stuffing. Those are violations as well. So you don't need to worry if you're doing everything legitimate, but if you're trying to beat the system, people have probably already seen it, and it's probably a violation as well. So let's get into crawling. And again, this is the really bulky area. So first ideas with crawling is that when you create a website, make it accessible without forms. Because most search engine crawlers can't complete pull-down menus or fill out a form. This is actually a major website, but the legal team told me I couldn't show the image. So I just kind of modified it slightly. But you can see here that if this is your home page and it says select your location, search engine crawlers aren't going to follow that, so they can't reach the depth of your site as easily. So remember, you don't want to actually block off your site like this. This is like kind of a door that's blocking everyone out. Another idea with this is cookies. So you want your content to be available without the use of cookies. So you might have a site. I haven't used it, but I guess eHarmony. I really haven't used it. Where they have, I don't know why it came to my mind. I was like, Match.com, eHarmony. Okay, now back on topic. So if you have a site like that where users need to log in and provide personal information, so that makes sense, but you still want to have some of your site available to guest users. And this is because search engines, they don't accept cookies. So you want to still show some of your content this way. That way you can still appear in search results for your site. A good way to do this is to create a guest account so that someone doesn't have to be logged in to see at least the initial content. And here's a good example of a website. These all take me about a second to find, where their homepage, and we've indexed this several times, says you must enable cookies to use this site. So you don't want this as being what we index for your site and being returned to users in search results. All right, next one. So as well, like with this idea of pull-down menus and cookies, is that you want to create a site that uses static HTML links and textual-based content. So this website, another one that legal said you can't have that either, was great. It's so pretty, and it was really great for kids. I mean, I was actually really entranced when I saw it. But if we look at the cached version of it, this is the same URL. You can actually see that Google has no text for this URL, and so we didn't follow any links on this page either. So while it might look good to users, remember that when you're making a search-friendly site, that all Flash isn't going to be that usable. So now what are some things you can do? First of all, let's talk about a crawlable architecture. And you want to design with the idea of progressive enhancement. So what this means is rather than saying, I'm going to have this great Flash site, oh, it's going to be so pretty, is that you actually say, you know what, let's start with the basics. Let's have static HTML links, so all my navigation and links are in HTML. And then from that point on, you can add the AJAX and the other bonuses to it, so that the Flash, if you have Flash on your site, it's just a complement to your already HTML-based website. So this is for accessibility reasons. So if you do this, then you improve the issues that you have with Flash and with cookies because you've already done it first just in static HTML. And also, a common idea is, why don't I just have my Flash site, and I'll create an entirely separate website that says HTML version. That is accessible to search engines, and if that is your only option, then I would suggest it. But a reason why that's not such a great idea is because you're now going to dilute your page rank. You have to maintain 2 versions of your website, and users can link to 2 versions of your website. So instead of having all your page rank and your links going to one area, you're now splitting that between 2. So you can see that you might not return as high in search results because we're not going to understand the authority of that website. So again, if you design with progressive enhancement, then you have just one site that'll be crawlable to search engines and accessible to many people. Oh, the last part here is linking with descriptive anchor text. The joke is that the most common anchor text on the web is click here. And that's not really descriptive to search engines. We'd much rather have an anchor text that tells us what the page is about. So I'm into sports, and if I have a website that sells sporting equipment, I might have a link that says, I could have 2 choices. A bad choice would be, see the basketball equipment here, and then putting that in the anchor text here. That's not that useful. What would be better is to say, view more basketball equipment, and putting that in my anchor text. So some guidelines for URLs. So now we got this site structure. What are these URLs going to look like? First, keep them organized. So have a plan going into your URLs about how they're going to be structured. And then also remember that you want them to be shareable between users. This is really big, especially as the social web is becoming much larger, that you want to have people be able to share that between each other. So shareable links don't take 3 lines, right? They're just going to be 1. And when you look at it, you can probably understand what it is. So it'll say basketball-women's or something, or women's-basketball.jpg, or a URL, not just product ID equals 64693, things like that, and it goes on and on. And if you design a website, remember to have all your URLs shouldn't be orphan pages. You should be able to go from any URL to another within 3 or 4 hops. And the last idea, it's become a really big issue on the web right now, is people are internationalizing their sites by translating their English content most often, and then putting it on the same URLs. So they're not creating a subdirectory or subdomain or top-level domain for this. So it might have English content and German content, but we're serving that all on the same formerly English URLs, and that's a bad idea as well. So remember that your URL should be largely the same unique content. Okay, so let's look at YouTube. This is a great example of a site that has a lot of rich media. So it's not all in a video, as we know. One thing they did is 1 thing per page, right? So each URL uniquely references one of these videos. And that's not an ongoing URL string either. What else they did well is that the site navigation is in HTML. And another great thing is that they've added a lot more text. So we've got a good title. We've got about this video. And about this video, we can add a paragraph of what the video is about. And we also have user-generated content with the responses and comments. So if you're using things like, if you're using a rich media site, I just wanted to bring out highlight some areas. If you have Flash, you can consider using Cipher. This is inline replacement. So now JavaScript can detect if you have Flash installed, and if so, then or if not, we show the textual-based version, and if so, we go ahead and show the Flash version. So you can see here, the key, though, is that we're not cloaking. The text matches the same content that other users see. And this is accessible not only to search engines, but also to people using screen readers. Let's move on to some AJAX ideas. You can use hijacks for AJAX. I don't know if all of you have heard of this, but the idea is that not only do you have your AJAX URLs that have a fragment, but you can create a static HTML link. So here you can see, if you want a user to click on foo32, there's two ways they can go about doing it. One is that if they don't have JavaScript, they can go ahead and click on the static HTML link. And the second idea is that if they do, they can go ahead and see all that AJAX grade information. So remember, search engines ignore fragments in URLs, but they pay attention to the URL parameters and a question mark. So there's a difference there. I added a lot of these. I actually run the Webmaster Central blog, so I kind of put different links on this because there's more information on all these areas. All right, now with images. Images are another great way to update your site and to keep it really interactive. How can you help search engines understand your images? One idea is to add descriptive alt text, high-quality images. The resolution does matter. And you want descriptive textual content near the image. So that's going to help a search engine understand what the content of the image is about. Another good thing just to know is that if you have a site that does well, it's an authoritative site, then your images will likely also be looked at more closely and likely considered authoritative as well. So let's do some examples. So a really nice image tag would say, image, source, Maile eating barbecue.jpg. That's descriptive. It tells us about the good file name. In addition, we have great alt text. We're saying, Maile eating barbecue chicken and corn on the cob. Very good. What's less nice, and this is common, is that you just write the image file name, and it's not even descriptive at all. And what's better to avoid, or I should say you really should avoid, I was trying to be nice here, is actually keyword stuffing that alt text. So I realize I want to rank this image for everything, so I'm like, alt text equals cheap food, good barbecue, Cialis, debt consolidation, cheap airfare, World of Warcraft, just throwing it all out there. Again, we're going to catch this, and you can get penalized not just for the image, but for your site as well. So now we get into Webmaster Central. So those are the tips you can do as you design websites. Let me help you more with the crawling area and how Webmaster Central can help. So Webmaster Central is at google.com/webmasters. It's available in 26 languages. Webmaster Tools. This is our free product that I'll be demoing a lot more of. And you can get from Webmaster Tools, it's free. Verify your site just with an HTML tag or a HTML tag, meta tag, or an orphaned HTML file in your root directory. There's also our blog and our help center and discussion group. Our discussion group has over 30,000 members. Googlers as well come in, and we answer questions related to crawling, indexing, ranking. All right, so how do we help you in the crawl pipeline with Webmaster Tools? We show you crawl errors for your site. This is actually what Googlebot encountered when it was crawling your domain. This is great. You're going to get error categories like the 404s or the unreachables and URLs restricted by robots.txt. We'll tell you which URLs they were and what time it happened. So you can correct your crawl mishaps. A great thing, if you have 404s, it's hard to tell whether they're from your site or they're from another site. If they're from your site, you can run Xenu to figure out where those broken links are located. And you want to make sure that if you have 500 errors, make sure that's what you expected. A lot of the times with smaller websites especially, they don't realize that they have hosting issues until they actually log into Webmaster Tools. So you want to check for those crawl errors and really be sure that's what's going on. And we can even tell because you can see the time, the days that it actually occurred, and certain hosting went down on certain days. And my favorite, so we get this a lot, is that someone will write and be like, I'm out of the index. And the reason why not often, but I'd say maybe a fifth of the time, is that they've modified their robots.txt file so that we can no longer crawl them. So I don't know if you all know what a robots.txt file is, but it's in your root directory, and it's a directive. It doesn't have to be followed, but it's kind of a gentlewoman's agreement. And search engines will follow it, and it tells us what to crawl and what not to, primarily what not to crawl. So it's easy if you said disallow all your directories that we're now going to take you out of the index because we're not allowed to crawl anything. So if you want to make a robots.txt file, it's great in Webmaster Tools because we have a robots.txt generator. You just tell us what directories, and we'll write it out for you. And in addition to that, we have a robots.txt analysis tool. So this is a place where before you put that robots.txt on your site live and test with the Googlebot and the Yahoo Slurp about what they're going to find and not find, you can actually test it out and test patterns and make sure the URLs that you expected to be crawled can still be crawled. And then we have a few web server options. Allergies. If modified since is a great header. If you want to reduce bandwidth, we'll actually check for that when we're crawling. So if you enable that and we see that it's the same document that we saw earlier in our last crawl, we won't spend time downloading that file. And another one is gzip. If you're using compression, there's others out there. There's deflate, but we definitely recommend using gzip. And there's a blog post called First Date with the Googlebot that explains more on that. OK, so I wanted to bring this up because this is just so prevalent. It's eliminating soft 404s. So soft 404s are when you configure your web server to return a 200 response code for a page that's not found. And so often what people do is, because they think that they're retaining the link juice or something, so what they often do is that it starts at number 1 over there, where a user types in a URL, and then it makes the request to google.com, and if Google doesn't do this, but this is a mock-up. But if we saw that the URL didn't exist, but we still returned, often they do this with the home page, then the user is confused, right? He's frowning there. He's saying, what happened to my URL? And while theoretically you might think this is an OK idea, it actually has several drawbacks. So one is that you have that confused users. I mean, he's frowning. He is not happy. And another one is that it causes duplicate content for search engines. Because if we see a lot of broken links and we're always indexing this 404 content, like your home page, over and over again, then we're actually kind of changing the way our crawl method on your site. So one, because we see all these duplicate content, we might not crawl your new areas quite as quickly. Another thing, we might not as quickly find your newly updated content. So it's actually a really bad idea to serve soft 404s. This isn't totally related to it, to crawling, but I just want to just give you guys a little extra tip. Back in the day, Google had an old 404, and it was good that it had a 404 response code. Right? We can see that's perfect, but that's not really that friendly to users. So we recently updated, I don't know if any of you saw, but we have a new 404. Yay! So now we have a search box, which helps users. We have a good description. It doesn't exist. We have a search box. We have alternatives. And you can see. It speaks for itself. So keep in mind, even if you return a 404 response code, you can still give content in that response. All right. Any questions with the crawl side? OK. Oh, yeah. Do you want to go to the mic? Or I can repeat. OK? No, it's a different crawler, Google News. And in fact, you can also see Google News, the news crawler, crawl errors as well in Webmaster Tools and mobile. And you can check it for, yeah. Oh, does that answer? OK, great. Yes?
Yeah, you mentioned using Xenu to decide whether or not the 404 comes from your site or not. Mm-hmm. The problem is that is like many other tools, it requires you to spider your entire site. Mm-hmm. Sometimes, like we have sites that have hundreds of thousands or more URLs to it, that would take forever. Why do you not show where the 404 came from in Webmaster Tools?
That's a good question, and that's actually a big feature that we have for Webmaster Tools. So we hear you on that one. Thanks. Oh, I have one more. Just go. Yeah, at the mic?
Can you talk a little bit about sitemaps?
Sure. There was a session before me, but I'll get into sitemaps with when I get to the next indexing area. Back there, yeah?
Yes. I just have a question concerning how the crawler views pages that are generated dynamically on the server versus if it was a static file that was served up. Does the crawler pay any attention to how the HTML web page was created?
No, it shouldn't matter.
So if I have a servlet and I generate an HTML file that's equivalent to a static file, mm-hmm. and that is sent through
yes.
to the crawler won't treat it differently.
No, it should be the same.
Okay.
I mean, I can't speak 100%, but we hear that question, and that's a fine situation.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. OK, so what the question is about penalties if you do something that is a violation of the guidelines. Have you seen Webmaster Tools Message Center? You have? Okay, so that would be the place. So in Webmaster Tools, when you verify your site, we can also send you messages, like little emails, so you get an inbox that can tell you when we think that you have mistakenly had hidden text. We also tell you if we think you've been hacked, like with malware. We'll let you know that we think your site, we've detected malware. You can remove it and request a malware review. There's so much you can do in that regard. But for penalties, that would be the one place to go. Yeah. Uh-huh.
So I have a question. How does crawler handle like the same content but in different languages? Like, would that consider like duplicate content or?
No, not at all.
So it's fine to have like two versions or
yeah,
multiple
it's fine
versions?
to have two versions. Even more granular than that is if you have Canadian English, or is that British English? I don't know what Canadians use. And American. That's actually fairly okay as well. A great way to do it is separate by top-level domains.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's not considered duplicate. We hear that question too.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes. Well, so like I showed you with the duplicate content, we're not going to index 400 versions of, an error page, or even that cookie site. You must have cookies enabled. So we have to filter through. It's algorithmically almost like that, actually. Yeah, so you can understand that, right? If you look at a calendar page, it's an infinite crawl. We keep clicking onto each month. So at some point, we stop the crawl, and we're like, you know what? Most of this was not very good content. So while we crawled it, it might not be included in our index and search results. I'm going to go with the mic 1 second.
So,
yes?
So suppose you have a TLD1 permanently redirecting to TLD2. So as I understand, the crawler would just index TLD2 and not TLD1.
Yes.
But is there any way to reverse that? I know it's permanent, but suppose the person does that and sells off the domain. Is there any way to say, well, I don't want it to go to TLD2 anymore?
Yeah.
Because
I'm not telling you, though. That's it. No, of course. Yeah, you're just going to have to set up 301s going the other way. But you're going to wait a while, and I'll actually show you a link at the end, because we talk about moving domains, and I want to go over the best practice. I don't want to make it oversimplify here. Okay. Yeah, at the mic? Uh-huh. Did you already ask one?
I did.
Okay, no problem. Repeat questioner. Uh-huh.
Okay, sorry about that. I am Canadian, by the way, and Canadian and British spelling are pretty similar.
Sorry. Uh-huh.
Yeah, but we do American too. No problem there. Just one other question concerning sort of a follow-on to what I had asked before. So if the URL ends in .html, does it matter whether that .html is there?
No, it doesn't.
Not at all.
Yeah, we use a file extension. Actually, I think we first use the content type that comes in the header when you send the request, and then we'll analyze the file type is next, the extension, and then we just determine it on our own.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Worry. Yeah. Okay. Yes.
So just to confirm, you don't do any indexing of fragments. We're doing like each.
At this point, we don't do any indexing of fragments. Yeah. But it can change. I mean, we evolve, but yeah, you're good for right now. Gotcha. Okay, so the question is about indexing Swift files, like Flash-related files, and we're not very good at that. At some point, we might want to show a demo. We're really not getting that much information at all. And what we do get, it's kind of garbled, so you actually have to parse it apart, because it concatenates text, too. So it's not looking that good. So really, the best way is to kind of find other ways right now. We hope to improve that, but we've been saying that for a while, too. So I'll take it at the mic, yeah?
Okay, so we have two different websites, one for US, one for Australia. And we sell the same product on both, but if you search for our product name, our US site comes up most often. We'd like to redirect our Australian visitors based on their IP address to the Australian site. Is there a best practice for doing that so as not to confuse the crawler?
Yeah, and that is actually, pay attention to the blog. It's coming out this week. We talk about IP delivery.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. But one other thing just to mention, so we're talking about targeting a certain area. If you have a verified subdomain or subdirectory, you can actually use Webmaster Tools, my repetitive word of the day, and you can use, we have a geolocation feature where you can actually set a verified subdirectory or subdomain to a certain geographic location. So you can say if his content is .com/au/basketball, he can actually target the /AU part to actually the region of Australia. So that's in Webmaster Tools as well. Did you have a question? Yeah. Okay, so the question is about PDFs and PDFs with titles that aren't necessarily in English characters. I am not going to be. We can look into trying to get more information out there about that if you can see me afterwards. But really, that's a conversion issue for a lot of us, and that's not so much what I'm good at. I don't have as much knowledge there. Sorry. Okay, let's go ahead and move on. So we got indexing now. So what we're going to talk about with indexing is promoting your quality content. So this is setting a preferred domain, influencing canonical URLs, which is the version you want, and then using 301s properly. 301s are really a good friend. So legal didn't mind this one as much. I'm not sure why. So you want to have one version of your website running. We talked about this before when we talked about a Flash and a non-Flash version. And it didn't take me but a second. I just searched for Google I/O. I think this was on the first page. AJAXonomy.com. It's probably a really good resource. But actually, they're running two versions of their website. You can see there's a www version, and then there's one without the www. So they're automatically running two versions of their site, and I don't think they quite know it. I tried to find a contact there, but I didn't manage to find one. So you want to redirect one or the other. So according to your marketing and branding needs, pick one. Don't run them both. And then have users all go to one. And then all the link popularity can all flow to one as well. That will happen as search engines crawl you. But if you want this to take more immediate effect with Google, at least, you can set the preferred domain in Webmaster Tools. And this takes effect within minutes, seconds probably. So you can set the preference. So let me just further explain why the two versions of the websites is a bad thing. This is another good tool. It's Yahoo Site Explorer. It's similar to our Webmaster Tools. And what this is showing you is that Yahoo's actually seeing separate links as well. So for the AJAXonomy.com versus the www version, people are linking to both versions. So again, they're spreading their page rank, diluting all their link popularity with these two versions. They'd be much better off just 301ing one to the other. Another idea that causes duplicate content is when you have URL parameters. This happens if you have products and you have sort orders, you have affiliates and session IDs. So this is a little bit small, but if you wanted, your intended canonical URL was on the far left corner. And so it's item equals Swedish fish is what you want people to be clicking on. But you can imagine that there can be duplicates because you can have sort orders, you can have affiliate IDs. So the other two are duplicates. So what do we do in this case? Well, you want to reduce your duplicate content, and I talked about that earlier, so that we crawl more of your unique pages. So one good thing to do, first and foremost, just remove unnecessary parameters. We've done some stats on websites that there's quite a few, that just have like z equals 0 set to their entire website, and I'm not really sure why they did that. But I'm sure maybe they thought they're going to have some growth at one point. So go ahead, clean that up now. Just remove anything that's unnecessary. And then another good idea is to use cookies. You want to reduce the overall duplicate content that's on the web. So use cookies to track that information, and then redirect to the canonical. So here I just did this on my computer about showing a web server log. So when a user comes in and they're requesting that long string of a URL, let's say they got this from someone else and they're clicking on it. Now I'm going to actually redirect them to the canonical, which is just item equals Swedish fish. And I can just use the cookie data. I can store all that information in a session file. Right? So now I have affiliate ID in there, and I have, I don't know what else, category as well. So you can use your cookies to set affiliate IDs and tracking IDs. But you want to make sure you still keep your site accessible for users that don't have cookies enabled and for search engines. All right, so how else can you influence the canonical? You want to submit a general website map. So this is answering the man's question earlier. For Google, they influence our understanding of the canonical URL. So if you submit a sitemap to us, make sure you don't have these long URL strings that have extraneous parameters. Really give us your canonical URLs. And the sitemaps, if they're an XML sitemap, this is not an HTML sitemap that you have on your site. An XML sitemap is great because it's run by sitemaps.org, which is a joint organization with Yahoo and Microsoft as well. So if you make one sitemap for Google, you can also give it to Microsoft and Yahoo. They'll pick it up too. Yeah?
Actually, the sitemaps.org has a specification that you can stack sitemaps within
Okay, I see what you're saying. So what he's explaining is that you can have an index sitemap file. And an index sitemap file can list up to, I think it's 100. It's either 100 or 1,000. Factor of 10 here. Not that big a deal. And you can list individual sitemaps inside your sitemap index file. So let me show you some of the details we have, and you can talk to me afterwards about yours, and I can. So let me move on here. So when you declare a sitemap file, you can do it through Webmaster Tools, which is great. But you can also put this for Yahoo and for Microsoft and Google, declare it in your robots.txt file. You just give a sitemap directive. And so example.com shows it here. One thing I want to show you is that if you notice I showed, for my URL location, I actually showed the canonical right there. The other things you can mention are the change frequency and priority. These are just hints. But the canonical is one that we do pay attention to, so it's a good way to use it. There are some other sitemaps, just quickly to go over them. If you have video content, you can submit a video sitemap. There you can list the title as well as the description and a thumbnail location. Woo! There's a whole bunch of sitemaps Google accepts right now. We also have news. We have mobile, code search. So that's just in Webmaster Tools. You can pull down and submit the sitemap that you choose. And here's something that you might be able to use for debugging purposes, is that, I don't know if you've seen this, but you have sitemap details. So if you submit a sitemap, you actually get more information about total URLs we found in your sitemap, so just to make sure that we recognize all those URLs. And the last part would be the index URLs. So this is great because you get a feeling of how many of your URLs in the sitemap that we're actually finding useful and we're looking to index. So while we might crawl a lot of your URLs in the sitemap, some people kind of just submit junky sitemaps, so they might not all be indexed, and this is giving you a good indication. And if you have an index file here, it'll actually, it'll be a cumulative result under your index file of all those. Okay. Nice. Yeah, you can do it both ways, but I would definitely take a look here if you're looking to troubleshoot what's going on, just to give yourself another idea. No, we allow that. We follow the sitemaps.org spec. We're like large participants. Yes. And then we've extended it with video as well, right? So hopefully those will be later incorporated into sitemaps.org. So sitemaps.org right now, the joint protocol gives you the robots.txt directive, and it gives you the XML file that lists the location and change frequency. But video, code search, that's Google specifically right now. Yes?
I've noticed if you disallow in your robots.txt,
Uh-huh. Yeah. It's a warning, I think. I don't know if it's an error. It might be a warning. Uh-huh. Yeah. Errors are error. Warning is like, just FYI. Uh-huh. So what about it? Yeah. Yeah, did you have a question or just explain? Yeah, that's true. So another thing we do, if you give us a sitemap file and you put URLs that are actually roboted out, we'll even let you know that here. We have errors and warnings for your sitemap files. Okay, so the last thing on indexing is, proper use of response codes. So I talked about this earlier. 301s are your friends if you have a permanent redirect issue. Because what it does is it signals search engines to transfer link popularity, any kind of details we have about that source, to the target. So 302s are temporary, but 301s are permanent redirect. So there's a big difference there. And it applies to situations like moving domains or modifying your URL structure. So let's say you're like, oh, I found a new way to organize my URLs. Well, that's wonderful, but you don't want to just disregard what you had before because people have been linking to that for a while. So to maintain all that popularity and that reputation, you can actually do 301s to your new ones. So I have a blog post there that's best practices when moving your site. If you just search on the Webmaster Central blog. I just want to highlight that because I think we've all done that at some point in our lives. And we're really telling you, when it comes to ranking and crawling, the best things to do. So not just the technical, but how it helps with search results. You're going to have to remove it. It's going to be like in a new site. So if you move your site to a new domain and then you want to revert, consider it you're removing. Like you still have to pack up all your boxes and get out the door. Huh? Yeah, let's talk afterwards, because I think it's rare that people do that in switchback. I mean, I know couples get back together all the time, but I don't know about domains. Okay. So anatomy of a search result. So here's what we're going to be talking about. With a search result, you have a title, that's the blue box. You have a snippet, that's the green box. Sound like I'm a kindergarten teacher. You have the URL, that's the pink box. And then you might have site links. Some of you might have seen this. Site links are actually garnered algorithmically when we have a high probability that the user's query matches this top result. So it's great. It kind of shows this is also derived algorithmically. So it doesn't have to do with what categories they've listed on their website or what tabs they have. This is really something that we've determined on our own. So titles, very informative. If you're writing any notes, titles are a good place to start with your site. So before we talked about crawling, that was kind of things you can do to make your site accessible. That's going to take some time, and you might have to redesign. But with titles, I'd say go with the existing site and make this happen. They're an informative signal of the URL's contents, right? So you might have 3 paragraphs, but if you have a title that doesn't really match it, you're really not capitalizing. You wrote 3 paragraphs, and I don't like to write. But you could have just made one really good title, and that would have really helped, right? So go that extra mile. The most common title on the web is probably untitled. And so we have that here, and that's not exactly informative, other than to say that the person didn't take the time to write a title. And so when a user sees this, right, it's not as compelling a click. I'm not drawn to that at all. So, once again, Webmaster Tools. Webmaster Tools is going to help you out with this because we have content analysis, which is actually going to point out title issues. We'll show you the URLs that are missing title tags, the URLs that have duplicate title tags, so that you don't have to go through that all on your own. You can actually just click through here and figure out where should you start. I love that. I think it's really helpful. So the missing and duplicate title tags issues revealed. Now you can help your snippets. So remember, the snippet is right under the title. They explain your content, and they help users want to click on it. It can improve your click-through. So I just did a search for gadgets. Again, all these examples, they did not take me long. It's prolific throughout the web. So if you're doing this, know that you're not alone, but you can improve it. So a search for gadgets returns Google Gadgets as the second result and the indented result. The first, I'll read this off. The first snippet is fairly long-winded. It's not that bad. But Google Gadgets. Gadgets powered by Google are miniature objects made by Google users like you that offer cool and dynamic content that can be placed on any page on the web. Okay, that's not that fun, but it's okay. The second one that I have highlighted is really kind of one that we should work on, and we will because I talked to the PM. Google Gadgets for your web page, 1 through 24 of 45,945 more, and context equals B, and syndication equals open, and laying equals, and it goes on and on. So if you're a user, that's not something you're really going to click on. So what can you do? You can influence your snippet with a meta description. So this is just like meta keywords. It's going to be in the head of your HTML file, and they can be utilized by Google in search results. So sorry, one second. So a lot of times in search results, we'll highlight the query term for the snippet because that's what the user was searching for. But if your term is kind of prolific throughout, we can actually write a meta description. So, one second, sorry, stopping. So without a meta description, we saw that Google Gadgets for your web page, 1 through 24 of 45,000. But if you just added this, we would probably be using it. It's not a guarantee, but if we use it, we find it's a quality meta description, it can often be shown in search results. So this says meta name description content equals. View the entire gadget gallery and select one for your web page. So that's a lot more user-friendly than the one above. And so again, go to the Webmaster Central blog and just look up snippets, and you'll see more information on this. So we have the title and we have the snippet looking prettier. Now let's just get to our checklist. So I'm just going to run through some of these. Does anyone have any questions with indexing? Yeah. Okay, so that's not the custom search box. So let's see if I can pull this up. So what he's asking about is, who has it? Do you know what customer has it? Best Buy, do they have it? No, Best Buy doesn't have it. I don't think Nike has it either. They do? Prize. All right, so what he's talking about this is that search box underneath, right? So Wikipedia has site links, and it has that search box. It's called search within a site. That is not related to CSE, actually. This is just doing a site colon search. So again, this is an area where we kind of did some user tests, and we found that they realized, again, we had the high probability this is the right result for them. So they have site links as well. And then we also have the high probability that it was too general a search, most likely. And so they're going to want to do that. So immediately they can just come here and search again. It has nothing to do with CSE. It's purely doing a site colon search off of our regular google.com index. Any other questions? Yeah. Yeah, that's a marketing decision as well. Some people ask, should I double colon it or should I pipe it? We see both of those. I'm fairly certain as separators. So it's a branding decision if you want it in or out or how you want to display it. No. So in search results, no. For you, it's going to usually the display of a title when they want to put their company name in, which makes sense. If you're a big name, if you're Nike or your institution, and you think that's actually going to be more useful, like, oh, they see it as authoritative once they see that title with your name in it, then it's a marketing decision. It's even if you put it after or before. But again, still make unique titles even with that. Uh-huh. It's tag. What do you mean? Oh, like the meta description? Yeah. Okay, so the question is about site links. How do you specify them? It's done algorithmically. The only thing you can do in Webmaster Tools is disable them if you don't want them for your site. But otherwise, it's done. You don't have influence over that. Yeah, in the red? Mm-hmm. Okay. Let's see. I am not sure. Did everyone get that question? So you have a source A, and you're redirecting to B, 301ing, and then you actually want to bring A back out someday for a different purpose. I'm not sure. That's a good question. If I had a pen, I would write that down. Can I see you after? Okay, we can put that out there. Yeah, question here?
Is there any limit or is there any positional value in the title? In other words, someone claimed that the closer to the left words are on the title, the more important they are in indexing.
Okay, so the question is about the title and where you have the words. What we try to do is most act like a user. So do users consider it more valuable if it's at the beginning or the end? And usually it probably is, because we read in the United States from left to right. So in that way, I would probably say, but I would just, those are kind of minute details. If you have unique titles all around, that's going to be taking up 90% of good stuff. And now you're just kind of fiddling with the last. Yeah, exactly. And again, right, we have a character limits for those titles. So you might truncate. Oh, I'm not sure you can actually figure this. I don't know off the top of my head. Yeah, but you can keep test. I mean, you can, run something. Okay, question here? Yeah, we hear this a lot, microperformance. With all technologies, that's not something that we're looking into right now. We're not public about that. If we have support, then we'd mention it on our blog. But again, when we get to, there's so many that are going to keep coming out, right? New ideas. And it's kind of the basics that we talked about creating an accessible site that you really should stick to. So I don't know that one specifically. Oh, no, actually, I'm not getting straight into the checklist. Yeah, question here?
New York Times has spider bites. Is that like duplicate content? Does that help your SEO?
Spider bites? I don't know what that is. The question's about spider bites. Does anyone know? Yeah.
Basically just like all their content in like black and white.
Oh.
Spider bites, I work at a newspaper, so spider bites is just a black site
Oh, okay. Okay. I don't know about that, so it sounds like it. Yeah, the New York Times does some. They have first click free as well. So spider bites, I would say that's not something I'm used to talking about. So it's either an XML sitemap or an HTML sitemap for your users, but an XML sitemap helps search engines. Yeah, over there. So they are algorithmic, but you can disable them. So if you verify your site in Webmaster Tools, you can choose one to be the email address to be disabled. Yeah. Yeah. You just megaphone at lunch. We get a lot of feedback on that. So we understand that it's something that people talk about and wanting to tweak. So, I can take it, but just know that it's been given and it's being worked on type of thing. It's one of those. In the back, there's a hand. So you're talking about page load time? Okay, so good question. Page load time. It's not right now a huge factor, but as we're finding users wanting faster load times when they click on a search result, it's impacting the user experience. So know that if your site has a ton of, usually it happens when you have a lot of images. So it is relative. It might not be as important right now, but we're looking at it. It's becoming a factor. So I'd hope that as you develop your site and your serving, your hosting, that you consider that a factor too. Kind of a little bit of a warning, I think, to everyone. Just consider that a factor. Is that it? Okay. Oh, is it two of you or just one of you? That was cute. It was like a couple. You didn't see it, but they're both raising their hands like this. Okay, who wants to answer? Okay, no, yeah. What? Okay, so the question's about image labeler. And what that is you can participate in a program called Enhanced Image Search, I think is what it's called. And that's not where I would be spending my time. I'd work with the ideas that I talked about with images. So I'd focus more on descriptive alt text, good file names, good content. Oh, the long text. Okay. So the question is this, and this happens a lot, is that people ask for things, does Google treat this or this, so things like, we talk about alt text, but there's also, like you said, long, there's title text for stuff. Other search engines might act differently, to be honest. So for us, pay attention to the alt text is what we're saying. But know that, if you can include that in another portion, we won't consider it spam if you have the duplicate title as well as an alt text or something. Yeah. But so I can't say what Yahoo does or Microsoft. Okay, yeah, right here. It doesn't matter as long as it's a regular file when we go to crawl it. Whatever you want to do. I think your idea might be better, but just it's regular. Yeah, we don't have a preference that way. As long as when we reach it, it's the same good content. In the back. I don't believe so. We've talked about that before. That's not going to be problematic as well. That server-side stuff. Okay. I almost put this in my thing, but I was like, iframes, are people still doing that? Yeah. Not a good idea. We're actually crawling it now, but you can't really link to it well. Let's just not go there. If you can not do iframes, I don't want to get into how we're trying to do it. We've tried to go around it and try to figure out stuff for Googlebot, but really, I'd stay away. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, that's not being crawled though. It's really spammable. We're not crawling that stuff really, and indexing, I think. Yeah. Oh, okay, gotcha. Yeah. So this question is about XML files being indexed, and they're currently not because users don't want to click on that. It's a big reason often. Yeah. But if you want to do a search, you can actually find there's XMLs indexed, but we're not showing them in search results usually. It's filtered. You can embed, sorry? Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Yeah, that's fine, but you still have to have descriptive text around it. But yeah, you can embed it. Huh? It comes down to having content. You can embed it anywhere you want, but you should still have content, textual-based content around it. You can talk afterwards, I think. We're moving. Can I just save those two till the end just to make sure I finish? I have 8.5 minutes. And we could talk at the end, too, anyone wants to come up. Here's my thing. Sorry. Back to our regularly scheduled programming. All right, search-friendly tips. Remember, have one version, www or non-www, and redirect to the other. Just another thing I want to throw out there is your homepage is usually highly ranked, so make sure you only have one version of that, too. Some people, you can usually just, remember we don't need an extension here. And if you have index.html and index.htm, check for that and get rid of one. Those redirect, just have one available. Unique URLs. A good way to check that a lot of your URLs are unique is doing a site colon search. So again, I did a search for Google I/O. I just chose one of the sites I found in the results. And I did a site colon and then the domain. And if you end up seeing things that say, in order to show you the most relevant results, we have omitted some entries very similar to the 91 already displayed. If you like, you can, and then you can click there. They're being filtered because of duplicate titles and snippets. So again, that's a really good area to just look at. You know, I'm getting crawled 91 of my pages are being crawled or something, or 120, but really I'm only showing 70 to Google because so many are duplicate. So we already are crawling this stuff. We're just not ranking it and showing it in search results because it's not that relevant. So it's a good way to know that you're already being crawled, and you can really, it's good potential there to make those more useful URLs. Also for internal link structure, so you might check this if you have your Flash site or something, if you're embedding. You can use Webmaster Tools. We'll show you the links inbound, who's coming, or who's linking to you and what page they're linking to. We'll also show you links that we found on your site within your site, so internal linking. So if you're doing something that has rich media and it's you're not sure if we're detecting those links, then once we start to crawl your site, and you'll start to see results here, and you can check whether or not we're actually finding that. So that's pages with internal links. And last, just another plug for Webmaster Central. Don't forget to verify your crawl errors, descriptive titles and meta descriptions, sitemaps for your canonical if you've got duplicate content issues. And the last point is fairly big. It's not totally related, but it kind of is. So it's sad, actually. Before, people would just spammers would often just hide text, or they'd do cloaking and those types of techniques. And it's gotten to a point now where I think it's becoming like hack sites, because we're detecting a lot of that at all search engines. So now it's hacking them and redirecting to some pharmaceutical site and things like that. So really be careful. If you've got great content, this is going to impact you in search results, because if we detect malware, or we see that it's now, and we can kind of tell some of this, that it's now being redirected to something that's spammable, we don't want to show that in search results, right? Because users, that's a really bad experience for them to click on something. So, your site's ranking is also impacted by your site's security. So just 2 posts we have that it would be helpful is security checklists and how to recover from being hacked. And so these, again, are not full-on security, it's on a security blog. But this is just ways that, in terms of your search results, how you can recover quickly and how you can protect yourself. So that's all I have for today. We'll just go into the questions. We have just a few minutes. So, yeah. Okay. Gotcha. So the question is about sitemaps. How often are we crawling them or recrawling them? And it's often based on how often we find them updated and how often we think the change frequency of your site in general. So if you just update your sitemap all the time, but we notice that you're not really creating new URLs, we think it's a fairly static site, you're not really keeping up with it, then that's going to affect the crawl rate. So it's done algorithmically, kind of in sync with how we crawl your site as well. Okay, question here? I think those are slowly. Yahoo searches Flickr, so that's good to know. And we're looking to incorporate more properties, not just our own, not just Picasa, but others as well. So right now it's better to host on your own site. And you have more control over it. You can add more content and stuff as well. Okay, in the corner. Oh, I feel like I paid you to ask that. It's the Google Webmaster Central blog. So it's googlewebmastercentral.blogspot.com. But if you just go to google.com/webmasters, it links to all of this. So yeah, this says making more house calls. So we're coming out to more places to talk. Yeah. I'm doing whatever the rest of Google I/O does. I don't know what their policies are. Oh, we are? Okay. We've unofficially heard that we're probably publishing our presentation. Okay. No. You could just say ignore or something. Oh, is that right? Maybe you can talk to me after, because I don't think it should be doing that. So the question is about updating the content webmaster tools. He's seeing legacy information he no longer wants to view. Yes? Oh, sorry, I'll get you in a sec. Yeah, mobile. His question's about mobile search. And actually, we don't really have that much built out in Webmaster Central on mobile right now. All we have are the mobile sitemaps. So I can't really provide good information. We know that's something we need to look into. It's big. Yeah, at the mic. Sorry.
Actually, I'm not an SEO nerd or genius, so this could be a naive question. But as people start using AJAX to populate content on their site, and they want to get search value out of it, are there any future plans for the crawler to support JavaScript or to be able to use that content as indexable content?
Yeah, so this is great. The problem, so he's asking about JavaScript and our ability to crawl that, and is that in our plans? It's not in our plans to ignore it, right? But we haven't been doing a very good job yet. So it comes back to the idea, if you want to do well now, or start doing well and building your reputation and getting crawled and indexed and showing in search results, then find ways that we don't have to, you don't rely on us to have to modify ourselves.
What about when performance, you said performance as far as page load time and stuff like that starts becoming a factor? Do you see that as sort of being the wedge that would maybe push it in the way of, all right, if we're also looking at performance as a factor in someone's page rank or whatever, and so people are using these tools to get around performance issues, would that, I don't know, kind of be a lever in that direction?
When I talk about performance, I just mean load time.
Okay.
So because it's just a user experience issue when they actually click on a search result.
Okay.
So yeah, it's kind of unrelated. Question in the back? Yeah, you. Yeah, what are the problems that you have with this? Because, I got 15 seconds. This is probably a bigger question than after. I'm just going to have to say thank you to all of you. I'll be outside, and we can talk more. Thanks so much.